Okay, so I'm going to follow up on the video that I did on a diagnostic and statistical manual of mental disorders a couple of weeks ago. So it was a very brief video to make you aware that there was such a book in existence published by the American Psychiatric Association, which is the book used by the psychiatric industry across the world to quote unquote diagnose individuals with various mental disorders. So the current publication is called the DSM-5, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Let me just show you that. Here we go. I think there is a 2022 revision. It still comes under the DSM-5 heading. So this one was 2013, revised 2022. Then we have the DSM-4, another 1,000 pages. And that was a 1994 edition with another revision. This means text revision. Then we have DSM-3. That was also a revision. The original one, I've got my list here, was 1980. This is 1987. Still publication 3. Just as a point of interest, the 1980 edition of the DSM-3 is where learning disorders such as attention deficit disorder first appeared. Then we have DSM-2. Now, these are printed because they're very hard to get hold of. I've never managed to get hold of them. This is 1968. It's actually only 130 pages, single page printing, but it's only 130 pages, which is a big difference from 130 and 500 and 1,000. Then we have the 1952 edition, which was also only 130 pages. You can download this off the internet. So if you just simply put DSM-1, DSM-2, DSM-3 PDF, you can download it. There's a very large website called MAD in America, very fitting, and you can download them from there. But what I recommended in my video, the first video, is that you should download it and observe for yourself, actually flick through and look for yourself the classification, if that's what you could, well, that's what we call it really. It's only classification. It's not a cure of any illness, but it's classification of all these mental illnesses and disorders that humans apparently suffer from. And as I said in my earlier video, you can literally put 99%, if not the entire population of Earth, in those categories. So as an additional point on this one, this is a DSM-1, first one, 1952. There's a whole introduction, which actually makes for very uncomfortable reading, even though I don't think that was the intention. I think they're raving on how brilliant it all is, but it's actually very uncomfortable reading, which suggests a lot of psychiatric experimentation was done on US soldiers during World War II, where we know this to be a fact, and I'm going to discuss that in other videos, but it's actually written there so you can actually read it yourself. Right, now, next thing. Just as a point, disorders. This is Webster's Dictionary. I just want to make a point on the definition of disorder. A disorder is simply an upset of normal function and ailment. This we can agree on, to disorder, to upset the normal functions or health of. So here's what you have to look at. These books that I showed you and the latest version over 1,000 pages classifies all sorts of ailments. And I gave you some examples last time, such as coffee addiction. I mean, you have to read it for yourself, but I'll give you some idea. Alcohol intoxication, alcohol withdrawal, caffeine-related disorders, cannabis-related disorders. There's an entire section on cannabis, and it makes you think, according to that, it's a mental disorder. But not only that, you also have a tobacco disorder. So anybody who smokes or withdraw from smoking or struggling with it, under this, it would be, a mental disorder. And it goes on and on. You have opioid intoxication, opioid withdrawal. And that made me think, the dreadful catch-22 and the madness of it all. Because if you think about it, a psychiatrist prescribe medication, amphetamine-like medication to people, antidepressants. These are all very, very strong medication, which actually come under the heading of their disorders. So you wind up hooked on psychiatric drugs, which then, you wind up hooked on psychiatric drugs for whatever disorder, but then you actually come under the other disorders on being hooked on drugs. You have to read it. Just download it and read it. But more important information, I'm going back on the timeline here. So we have 2022, the current version. First version, 1952. What happened before 1952? So I have my little notes here to be very exact. On 21st of August, 1948, the World Federation of Mental Health was founded by Canadian psychiatrist Brock Chrisham and British psychiatrist John Rawlings Rees. I'm going to tell you more about this man in some other videos, because he was a major figure in experimentation, psychiatric experimentation on soldiers during World War II. Okay, then a few months before, on April 7, 1948, the World Health Organization was founded, the WHO. And who was the first Director General? Brock Chrisham as well. And here's a even better one. In 1921, the American Psychiatric Association was founded, but it wasn't really founded. Its name was changed. Its real name since 1844 was this. It's a mouthful, so I'm going to read it to you. It was the Association of Medical Superintendents of American Institutions for the Insane. I read that again. Association of Medical Superintendents of American Institutions for the Insane. That became the American Psychiatric Association in 1921. Can you believe that? There was actually an association of managers of insane asylums. And to finish off, just as a point, this is a book I already mentioned, A Short History of Psychiatry, by this author. You can find it on Internet Archives. It's a 1956 book written by a psychiatrist. Again, praising psychiatry in all its ways, even when it's describing psychosurgery, electroshock, torture. He goes on how wonderful it is. But I want to read something here, which is very important. He makes a point, page 72. This is written in 1956, and this is what he says. The position of the psychiatrist about 1900 was not a particularly happy one. Although he was better able to classify the psychoses and predict their outcome than his predecessors a century before, he still suffered from the same ignorance of the causes of mental illness, and he still had to be content with the same miserable methods of treatment. This is 1900. And yet, by 1921, we have the American Psychiatric Association. By 1948, we have all this organization. By 1952, we have the first DSM. And yet, those people know nothing about the causes of mental health and mental problems. And to leave you with more food for thought, remember the Greek physician Galen? For 1500 years, his theories on the four humours and on blood being produced by the liver and absorbed by the body, for 1500 years, those theories were not contested. Nobody questioned it. Medicine did not advance for almost 1,500 years because of false information. So my future videos, my next video, part 3, is going to be on where the brain theory, the chemical imbalance in the brain theory actually comes from. It is very precise from very specific individuals, late 1800s. So stay tuned.